Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about a somewhat complicated topic, and it is cost plus versus fixed price contracts. So if you're thinking about a custom home and you're kind of confused about the different types of contracts being offered, definitely stay tuned. This one's for you. All right, so like I said, today we're going to talk about cost plus versus fixed price contracts when we're in, as it relates to building a custom home. Before we get into that though, let me just remind everybody our channel is all about everything building a custom home. So the planning, design, architecture, engineering, actual building of it, the financing, whatever it might be. We just want to make sure that you get all the information necessary to really help you make a good quality informed decision while building a custom home, and honestly just to see if it's something you even want to tackle. So if that's good information for you, definitely please take the time, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell down below so you get all the notifications. We're posting new content every week. Again, we just want to make sure you're taken care of. You get all the information necessary if you're thinking about building a custom home. All right, so let's get into it. Cost plus versus fixed price. These are the two main contract types that you'll hear about whenever you're talking about building a custom home. So the main differences with them, and again, we're going to I don't want to say we're going to dumb this down, but we're going to dumb it down a little bit. We're going to talk about just the basic differences, some of the key terms and just considerations you need to have on one side or the other, talk some overall pros and cons, again, really just to help you understand the terms as maybe you're talking with potential builders to help you build your custom home. So basic differences, cost plus and fixed price. Let's start with cost plus. So a cost plus contract is kind of what it sounds like. The builder goes out, you go through the design process, you get a good idea of what you want your home to look like, and the builder's going to send out all of the different aspects, if you will, of the house out for bid to their trades. Or if they're building enough volume, they might have a really good idea, or maybe they've built a house very, very similar to it. They might have a good idea of exactly what each line item is going to be. Typically, they're going to send it out to their trades to kind of double check everything. So they're going to get a line item budget together for really kind of every single aspect of your house, from the initial soils testing, the perk test for the septic, everything that has a number associated with it is going to get line itemed out, and it's going to come up with a number, and it's going to include material, labor, everything to build the house, and it's going to have a number to it. Now, cost plus means that if those numbers change at all, then it's on you. So you, as the future homeowner, the builder, you're going to have a little bit more risk associated with it, because cost plus means that it's just cost. That's what it is. So the plus portion of it typically means that it's whatever the fee the builder is going to charge. So most builders will do a percentage of the total build. Some builders will kind of figure out what once you get your initial budget together, say if it's going to be $1 million, some builders might say, hey, our fee is 15%, so our fee based on that is $150,000. And then if you change things, or if the budget changes throughout the process, their fee's still going to be $150,000. They'll kind of lock that in. Cost plus fixed fee is another term that you'll hear. Some builders will let that, the amount that they're going to make their fee for building the home, some of them will let that fluctuate throughout the process, so that if you started at $1 million, but you end up at 1.5 at the end of the day, and it's a 15%, now you're paying 15% on that $50,000 extra on top of it. So cost plus, the big thing is that you see most builders will share the numbers with you. Maybe not all of them. A good quality builder, nothing to hide, super transparent. They're going to share all the numbers with you. They're going to say what their fee is. You're going to see what their profit margin is. But just if you change anything, then that's on you. And that if material changes or if labor costs change, then that's going to be on you, that you're going to have the risk of that cost. Fixed fee is you sit down with the builder, you get the home design, the builder is going to send it out for whatever to all the different trades, or maybe if it's a plan they've built before, they're going to have a number associated with it, and that number is going to be fixed. So it's a fixed price. So their profit margin, the builder's profit margin, is already factored into it. They're going to present that number to you and say, hey, here's what the number is. We essentially guarantee that we're going to build this house for this dollar figure. Now, of course, if you change anything, if you want to add another bedroom or add 1,000 square feet to it, the numbers obviously change. But if you build that house, even if material prices go up, if labor prices go up, the builder's committing to building that home for that price. It's a fixed price. Their fees already calculated into it. Now, with fixed price, typically builders they don't show you the whole budget because there's really no need to. They're just saying, hey, we'll build this house for this dollar figure for you. Now, with that, so those are the basic differences of cost plus versus fixed price. Now, some of the things that obviously come to mind are, my gosh, like, do I have to know every single light fixture that I'm going to pick out if it's a fixed price contract? Like, how do they know what that price is going to be? Or even on a cost plus, how do they know exactly what the lighting line item or plumbing fixtures is going to be? So, in either one of those two situations, the cost plus, you will ultimately pay for, if you pay $150 for a plumbing fixture, you're going to pay $150 for that plumbing fixture. Now, on a fixed price, what will happen is they're going to give you allowances. So the builder's going to say, hey, for all of your granite, you have an allowance of $10,000, whatever the number is. For all of your plumbing fixtures, you have an allowance of $7,500. So that's how they can come up with the fixed prices, because they have those allowances in there, and they say this is your allowance that you have to spend for that specific line item. So let's talk about countertops. So maybe you went into the whole process and you told the builder, hey, we want granite countertops, and he figured out that based on what you talked about, $10,000 was a good allowance to make sure that you could get all the countertops you wanted, and they'd still be at that fixed price that they guaranteed to build the house for. Now, because that's an allowance line item, it's kind of up to you if you go over that number. So say your budget was, the allowance was $10,000. If you spend $20,000 on countertops, the builder's not just going to do it for the same fixed price. It's fixed price, but with allowances. So if you decided, man, we want quartz throughout the entire house, and the budget goes up, or the bill goes up to $20,000 for your countertops, that is going to get added on to the fixed price. So if you stay within your allowances, then the fixed price is the price. But if you go over your allowances, that amount is going to get added on to the overall price. Now, most builders, that if they have an allowance of, say, $10,000 and you only spend $8,000, they'll take that $2,000 and they'll do what we call, they'll let it float. So it stays in the budget, and maybe when you get to your plumbing fixtures, maybe you spend $2,000 extra on those. So between those two line items, those two allowances, it's a wash. So with fixed price, the price is set, the builder's guaranteeing they're going to build it for that, but you do have allowances that you have to stay within. So this is a super important point, because this is where I think a lot of people, not saying all builders do this by any means, but I've seen it happen before, is a client decides to build, everything's great, but they've never built a custom home before. They really don't know, like, gosh, that seems like a lot of money for XYZ allowance, but I guess it's okay. The builder knows what they're doing. But the builder gives super, super low allowances to make the overall price look low. So when you get that fixed price contract, you think, man, this is great. I love the price for what we're going to get. But then as you get through you get further into the build and you have to commit to those exact specific items, you find out that those allowances aren't nearly enough to cover what you need. So you either have to get really bad granite you don't like, you have to get really bad plumbing fixtures you don't like, or you're going to go over your allowances and it's going to get added on. Now, like I said, most builders don't do that, but you might run across somebody that tries to kind of be a little funny like that. So I always say just ask really good questions about the allowances. Maybe even ask to see some information from maybe a previous build. So if somebody built a very similar house, if the custom home builders helped someone else with a similar home, maybe ask to see what those allowances were. And maybe even ask to talk to that client and see if those allowances worked out for them, if they had to sacrifice anything, or if they were happy at the end of the day. A good quality builder is going to have no problem sharing that information with you, because they're going to want to make sure that you're happy with the allowances and there's no surprises after you get moving forward with the build. So allowances are super, super important, especially on a fixed price contract. Now, like I said, on a cost plus, you'll still see some allowances, because when they're figuring out what that initial budget is for you, you haven't picked out everything yet. So there's going to be some estimating in there just to make sure you're comfortable with the rough budget for the project. Again, just knowing that it's, man, whatever you decide to buy, that's what you're paying for. And if you buy something more expensive, you're going to pay more for it. If the price for that material goes up, you're going to pay more for it at the end of the day. So allowances are super important, and it's a place where people can kind of get off on what their overall budget actually comes out to be. All right, so that's basic differences and allowances. Next, let's talk about the fees. As I mentioned, with fees, if it's a cost plus contract, typically the builder will have a line item for whatever their fee is. Some will have a fixed fee that they charge. Some will just have a percentage that will fluctuate as the price of your specific build goes up or down. I think industry standard right now is anywhere between 14 and 20%. There are some that are higher, probably some that are a little bit lower, but that's a good ballpark estimator. So you're going to see what that builder profit margin fee is. It's all going to be laid out in there. And if they have a fee for their superintendent, for on-site management, things like that, everything's going to be detailed in that. You're going to get to see all that. On the fixed price side of it, you're not going to see exactly what the profit margin is. Now, it really just kind of comes down to, do you want to have, do you want to see all the numbers? Do you want the builder to take some risk? Do you want to take more risk? With, as you can probably imagine, a builder has to hedge their bets a little bit. So if they say they do all their numbers and they think the house is going to cost $950,000 to build, they may vary. That's with their profit margin in there of say 15% for easy numbers. They may very well say, man, material might be going up. We're not really sure. Man, this labor seems like it's kind of changing around a little bit. They might hedge their bets a little bit and say our fixed price to build the home is $1 million. So they kind of add a little bit of extra fluff. I don't want to say fluff, but just a little bit of extra protection for themselves in there to make sure that if material does go up a little bit, they've got a little bit of extra in the budget. If labor cost goes up a little bit, so just know that with a fixed price contract, there's going to be a profit margin. The builder's got to make money, right? But there may be a little bit of extra because they're taking on the risk versus cost plus. If the number goes up, if the price of material goes up, then that's on you as the owner to pay that extra. So the fee structure, it's kind of the biggest thing is that on a cost plus, you'll probably see what all the numbers are. And on the fixed price, you won't see what all the numbers are. So the fee structure is going to be a little bit different. And it really comes down to this last piece of it. And I've mentioned the word a couple times, and it's risk. So if we do a cost plus contract, as the builder, their risk is relatively low. They're going to have some non-refundable down payment funds, and whatever they are going through the project, just the number is whatever the number is. They pay extra for material because material cost went up. Say the framing pack was more, then they just pass that cost to you. They're not making any more money off of it, but they're not paying whatever the delta was from what the initial price was. So the risk is more on the owner, the person having the build done for them, if it's on a cost plus contract, because again, you just take the risk if numbers change. And honestly, in today's world, prices typically don't come down. Labor typically doesn't come down. Materials, we kind of had some lumber spiking during the COVID pandemic, but for the most part, costs typically don't come down. They typically go up. So again, it's a little bit more risk for you as the person having the home built for you. So then on the flip side of that, what's the risk if you do a fixed price contract? There really isn't any risk. You're just letting the builder take the risk and saying, hey, that's the price you told me. I stayed within your allowances. This should be the number. It's not my problem if the framing pack went up, $20,000 over the last, 6 months while we were doing the rest of the design process or until we got to ordering the framing material. So the risk is very much on the builder at that point. Now, like I mentioned, builders, it is a business, so sometimes they have to kind of hedge their bets a little bit, and they might have a little bit of extra figured in just in case there's any of those changes. But again, the benefit for the person having the home built is what your price is. It's a fixed price as long as you stay in your allowances. Very low risk. On the flip side of it, the cost plus, a little bit more risk because as material and labor fluctuates, then it's up to you to pay that delta, and the builder's fee is typically fixed or it'll just fluctuate as a certain percentage of the total build. All right, so hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Like I said, it's just some basic differences that we want to make sure because it does make a big difference. Now, another thing to think about is when will you typically see these types of contracts used? If it's a super complicated build, a really like a unique one-off true custom home, or maybe just a really large project, most builders are going to want to do a cost plus. It's going to be way too much logistics, and they just honestly wouldn't have enough information during the planning stage to figure out with exactly what that number is going to be, that they'd be comfortable quoting an exact number and committing to it as a fixed price. If it's a larger project, true unique one-off custom home, a lot of times, I would say pretty much all the time, a custom home builder is going to want to do that as a cost plus contract. So as things change and they, kind of alter throughout the project because it is so unique, or as the project continues to grow, maybe it gets even bigger, then the builder doesn't have the concern of, my gosh, we quoted this price, but now the project's changed a little bit and we're not really within our budget. So they're going to want to do that cost plus. On the flip side, a lot of custom home builders now will have plans that either clients have previously built, or maybe they've just had their architect draw up to make sure that clients have kind of a starting point to make the planning and design process a little bit easier. Those projects that are a little bit more simple, or especially if it's a home that the custom home builder has built before or very similar to it, those are the projects that they're going to want to do fixed price. It typically makes the process a lot faster. It's more streamlined. It's less work on the back end to come up with an exact budget every single time. They can just say, hey, we know that home last month cost us X amount to build, so we're comfortable quoting that price to you. Maybe there's a little bit of increase for inflation in there, but they're comfortable quoting that fixed price to you. So it speeds up the process a little bit, makes it a little bit more easy and streamlined versus a cost plus to do a fixed price contract. So it really just depends on what type of project it is. If the builder wants to do cost plus or fixed price, a lot of builders only like to do cost plus. They don't like to do any fixed price. They just say, hey, whatever the numbers change to, that's on you. So pros and cons, this is where it's, man, there's pros and cons to everything, right? So I guess probably some of the biggest pros of cost plus is, hey, if prices go down, you pay less. If prices don't go up, you're still on budget. You get to see all the numbers, so you know exactly what every single line item is from a lot of builders. Not all will do that, but most are, some are pretty transparent about it. So you see what all the different line items are, and for for a more complicated project, it just makes sense. So that's a big pro. It's just easier to handle complicated projects. And like I said, the biggest con for it is just the risk that you take on as a person having the home built if prices do increase. And then pros and cons on the fixed price side of it is you have a lot less risk. Huge pro there. You have a lot less risk. You do have allowances that you have to stay within. So it's a great thing if you can stay within those allowances. And like I said, definitely do your homework and make sure that those are realistic allowances that you're being quoted for your overall budget. So that's a big pro. Less risk for you. Stay within your allowances. And then I guess the con to it is if prices do happen to come down, or if everything comes on right at budget, there's probably a little bit of extra that the builder planned in there that they don't have to pay, but you're still going to pay to the builder because, again, it was a fixed price agreement for them to take on that risk. I'll say typically there is a little bit of cost changing with material and labor. So I think in most cases, even on a fixed price contract, if the builder does figure in a little bit extra, they typically don't put much of that in their pocket. It's really just whatever their fee was, like I said, roughly the 15% maybe that they made. So it's just, if you want less risk, you want to know what that price is, you don't have to stress about it. Fixed price is the way to go. And as I mentioned, typically used for a little bit more simple projects, simple custom builds, or homes that the builder has built very, very similar homes, or maybe the same home, the same floor plan previously, and you're going to just kind of change that floor plan around a little bit. So cost plus, fixed price. It is a little bit of a complicated topic, but it's super important to understand this, and we get questions about it. Us as a builder, we'll do both cost plus or fixed price. Again, just depends on the project and who the client is. But we get questions about it, so I just wanted to give a little bit of basic information. There's a ton more detail that goes into it, so if you're an expert on contracts, cost plus or fixed price, don't judge me on this. Like I said, we kind of dumbed it down a little bit. So if you have any questions whatsoever, as always, call, text, email, hit us up in the comments, whatever is easiest for you. Just want to make sure you get all the information to make the best decision if you're thinking about building a custom home. And I've got to say, if you're in the state of Colorado and thinking about building a custom home, we are a custom home builder in the state of Colorado. So would love the opportunity to talk to you and see if we might be a good fit to help you with the build. Take care.